Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream, and it has spoilers for the Toy Story movies. You know, after I got out of Toy Story 4, I tweeted that I thought it was just okay, and that honestly I felt a little let down. It wasn't so much that the movie was bad, I don't think it is. Just that the previous 3 films set an impossibly high standard that maybe the 4th just couldn't live up to. But the more I thought about it, the more the thing I found most interesting, and maybe my biggest problem with it, was the choice that Woody makes at the end of the film. The first scene, which was very classic Pixar, was set almost a decade ago, that showed us Bo Peep getting hauled away to a new home now that Andy's sister Molly had kind of outgrown her. Woody tries to save her, but Bo realizes there's no real place for her at the house anymore, so she asks Woody to come with her. And he almost does, making it clear that his relationship with Bo is actually a little deeper than I might have guessed from the first 2 films. But of course, he hears Andy calling out for him and decides that he just can't leave. He's Andy's toy. And as we've seen over and over again in this series, nothing means more to Woody than that. It's what he's formed his entire identity around, probably more than any other toy. If Toy Story 4 is about anything, it's kind of about Woody outgrowing that and embracing something totally different. I think this is maybe a decent idea for a Toy Story sequel, but I'm just not sure 4 manages to pull it off. Which, to be fair, I'm clearly in the minority opinion on. So I'm going to try to break down this idea, where I think it succeeds and where I think it falls a little short.
It's the new action-packed Buzz Lightyear movie!
The first Toy Story had a very straightforward, simple premise. What if your childhood toys could come alive? From there, it told a funny and surprisingly deep story about jealousy, delusion, and friendship. The world of the movie may not have held up that well to much scrutiny. The old go-to question is always why Buzz would pretend to be a toy when there are humans around if he's sure he's a space ranger. But goofy plot hole questions like that don't really bother me when a movie has paid this much attention to its characters. Toy Story 2 makes the world of the films deeper though, establishing the story behind Woody. Of course, that movie eventually comes away saying that toys are meant to be played with and loved by kids, not put up in a stodgy museum, even if the kids do eventually grow up. But it also introduces the character of Wheezy, a lost toy with a broken squeaker that's been forgotten by Andy and seems pretty miserable. Now, I know he has a happy ending in the movie, but I think the introduction of Wheezy actually led the franchise down a road that would make the 4th movie as thematically confused as it seems to be. Because in the 3rd and 4th movies, we see more and more discarded toys. Desperate and sad ones, looking for a kid to love them, or even just trying to get played with at the park or daycare. And I think that park scene really cemented to me what I find kind of weird about Toy Story 4. This series has always kind of operated under the assumption that being loved by a kid is what toys are made for. It's their #1 goal. But being a toy in the 4th movie seems really, really terrible. Don't get me wrong, past movies have definitely showed that toys have it rough sometimes. I mean, just look at all the poor guys in Sid's room. But 4 is the first movie where it seems like most toys are actually these forgotten pieces of plastic trying anything they can to get attention. Duke Kaboom is obsessed with a kid he hasn't seen in at least 30 years, judging by the flashback scenes. Duke and Bunny have spent years strapped to a wall, just waiting to be given away. I know this is kind of similar to Jesse's arc in Toy Story 2, but in Toy Story 4 there's no real clear-cut solution. One of the only lost toy characters who doesn't seem sad and desperate is Bo Peep, who seems to be over the idea of having a kid at all and is totally doing her own thing, just kind of out in the world exploring. And of course, in the end, that's what Woody decides to do too. But here's my real problem with it. The movie wants to have its cake and eat it too. It's a film that seems like it wants to be about how the toys don't need a kid to be happy, and Bo Peep showing Woody that there's more to life than that. But this would kind of contradict the message and themes of pretty much every previous Toy Story movie, so it never fully commits. To illustrate what I mean, look at the character arc of Gabby Gabby. She seems to be the most powerful toy in the antique store, but she's also deeply unhappy. She blames not having a kid who loves her on her broken voice box, and is willing to steal Woody's just for one last shot at a child in the store noticing her. But even when she pulls this off, she's immediately tossed aside, as the girl just decides, whatever, this old doll is kinda lame. It's a sad moment, but not one that leads her to any real growth. Woody basically just encourages her to try again and find a new kid. When, I don't know, after everything the film had shown, I kind of wanted her to go the Bo Peep route. Instead of just getting lucky and finding a new kid, maybe she could have found a way to value herself outside of if a kid wants her or not. And the post-credits scene with Bo Peep and Woody giving toys away just doesn't really mesh with what Bo Peep had been previously saying, and kind of felt like a cop-out to me.
Come to your home computer.
Terrific!
Not bad.
Introducing Pixar and Disney's animated storybook Toy Story on CD-ROM.
I admit that I'm probably overthinking this movie, but each Toy Story film has strived to really take its characters' journeys seriously, to get us emotionally invested in this world, and sometimes to make us cry. 4 is the first movie that has a toy character that's found a real life and purpose outside of being played with. I mean, think about it. When Woody pulls Bo Peep's arm off and screams, in a kid's room this would have been a massive deal, like who wants a toy with a broken arm? But Bo just laughs it off, because to her, who really cares? With just a little tape, she's ready for her next adventure. Her whole existence isn't just defined by the whims of one 3-year-old anymore. She's fine doing her own thing. And once you open that possibility and show that toys can have lives outside of kids playing with them, it completely changes how you look at these movies. Woody has always been defined by his loyalty to his kid. Bo Peep even says that that's something she really likes about him. But honestly, this movie makes that loyalty seem pretty dumb, in a way that the past movies didn't. So when he decides to stay with Bo, it makes perfect sense in the context of Toy Story 4. But it felt kind of wrong to me when you take into consideration the rest of the movies.
Somewhere in that pat of stuffing is a toy who taught me that life's only worth living if you're being loved by a kid. And I traveled all this way to rescue that toy because I believed him.
Now, obviously the circumstances are a little different because he was Andy's favorite toy, and with Bonnie, not so much. But I still don't buy that Woody would completely give up on the idea of having a kid at all. Another reason it felt a little off to me is it just seemed kind of obvious what Pixar is trying to do. Toy Story 4 didn't really meet expectations opening weekend, so maybe this won't even happen, but it seems really clear to me that a large part of the reason Toy Story 4 exists is to keep the franchise going while kind of doing away with most of the old characters. Slinky, Ham, Rex, and even Buzz to an extent have more reduced roles in this film, and new characters played by cool celebrities like Keanu Reeves and Key and Peele get a lot of screen time. I don't have a problem with these new characters necessarily, although I do think some of the joke writing felt more Wreck-It Ralph than Toy Story. It was just kind of a shame to see characters that got such a loving send-off almost a decade ago brought back to basically sit on the sidelines here. Other than Woody, who, of course, is played by their most bankable star. It just feels like an obvious attempt at setting up a new version of the franchise that keeps Tom Hanks around and ditches almost everyone else. And if they were gonna go that route, I really wish they had just left these characters alone and started something new with Hanks instead.
In a twisting, action-packed adventure back to Andy's house. 5 ways to live the magic.
In the end, I had complicated feelings about Woody's big choice. I think it works in this movie, but not in this franchise. Toy Story 4 was pretty charming, and it had some great moments. But overall, it all just feels a little cynical to me. Toy Story 3 isn't my favorite film in the series, which I think is still the first, but it was just about as perfect a send-off as you could hope for. And going back to Woody and the gang one more time, especially in a movie that makes their world seem kind of miserable, kind of bummed me out a little bit, if I'm being honest. It's crazy to think that Toy Story 3 was almost a decade ago, and that the franchise itself is almost 25. Honestly, that really makes me feel old. But a great and super entertaining way to put that into context is to watch Deep Time History, a documentary series that lays out how crazy old the Earth really is, and uses geology and physics to dig into our planet's history. It really blew my mind, and I just binged the whole thing in a night. And you can check it out on CuriosityStream. From the founder of the Discovery Channel, this is the go-to service if you have any interest in documentaries. It has over 2,400 titles to choose from, about everything from ancient and modern history, to tech, to science, and a lot more. The best part is that CuriosityStream is available worldwide on a ton of devices, and starts at just $2.99 a month. In fact, you can get 30 days on the service for free just by going to curiositystream.com/Captain Midnight, which you'll find in the description and pinned comment below.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and